Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you success is not something you chase? What if the very act of pursuit, this desperate reaching, this endless striving is the reason so few ever hold it in their hands? Now open your mind to a higher truth. Success is not something you chase. It is something you become. It is not an event. It is not a one-time breakthrough. It is a system, a way of being. And that way of being can be designed. Right now, within you, there is a loop running. A loop made of thoughts, of beliefs, of habits. And that loop, not your goals, not your potential, determines your results. The loop controls your day, and your day becomes your life. You see, most people know what to do. They have the information. They have the desire, but they still don't change. Why? Because you can't outperform your identity. If your habits say one thing and your self-image says another, you will always default to the identity. Desire alone is never enough. Motivation fades, emotion is fleeting. What systems? Systems endure. So the question is not, how do I get more motivation? The question is, how do I rewire the system? You must consciously install the habits of greatness. Not by accident, not by luck, but by design. You must reprogram the mind to operate from the identity of someone who already possesses the outcome. Think, act, speak, and move as the version of yourself who has already achieved it. This is how you rewire the subconscious. Thought aligned with belief. Belief fused with action. Action repeated until it becomes identity. That is the path. That is the formula. Your habits reveal your future. But here's the good news. You can take control of that future. Starting now, starting here, starting today. Because success is not an act. It is a system. And that system can be you. Please like this video and subscribe our channel for daily motivations and mindset speech. Success is not an event. It is not a trophy placed at the end of a long road, handed out to the most ambitious or the most fortunate. It is not a one-time act that can be performed, nor is it a fleeting moment of achievement that defines a life. Success is a system, a living, breathing framework of being that is rooted in identity, reinforced by thought and revealed through consistent action. To truly master success, one must not view it as an object of pursuit, but rather as a state of existence. The most transformative realization a person can have is that success is not external, it is internal. It is not something to be gained, but something to be awakened. When you stop chasing and start becoming, a shift happens at the deepest levels of consciousness. You are no longer trying to achieve something outside yourself. You are revealing something already within. The individual who sees success as separate from themselves unknowingly creates a gap, a psychological distance that breeds striving, anxiety, and self-doubt. But when success is seen as the natural result of embodying certain principles, actions, and disciplines, the entire approach changes. You begin to mold your mind, shape your habits, and refine your beliefs until they match the identity of one who lives in alignment with greatness. This is not a matter of motivation or temporary inspiration. It is the deliberate creation of an internal system so aligned, so intelligently designed, that the results become inevitable. It is not magic, but mastery. The individual who becomes success does not ask, "Will I make it?" They live as though they already have. Their habits no longer struggle against who they are. They express who they have become. The pursuit ends, and the embodiment begins. Every human being operates within a mental architecture shaped by repetition, emotion, memory, and belief. Beneath the surface of daily decisions, there exists an invisible loop, a self-reinforcing pattern of thought and behavior that silently governs action and outcome. This loop, often forged in early life and strengthened through unconscious repetition, becomes the default operating system of the mind. Most people are unaware of its existence, yet it influences everything. How they respond to challenge, how they interpret failure, how much success they believe believe they deserve, and what level of action they are willing to take. The loop is not logical, it is habitual. It does not ask what is possible. It repeats what is familiar. These internal patterns operate like scripts, running silently in the background, generating consistent results regardless of conscious intention. This is why so many individuals set goals with clarity, speak affirmations with passion, even take action for a while, only to find themselves returning to the same emotional states, financial limits, or relational cycles. The mind returns to what it knows. The system defaults to its loop until that loop is interrupted and redesigned. Meaningful change cannot take root. To change your life, you must locate the loop. To locate the loop, you must observe yourself without judgment, recognize recurring thoughts, identify limiting language, track emotional triggers. These are not random experiences. They are the data points of a deeper code. And this code can be rewritten. Awareness is the beginning of power, but awareness must be followed by intelligent reconditioning. New input must replace old patterns. Deliberate repetition must override unconscious habit. Otherwise, you are not living with free will. You are enacting a mental program installed by chance, culture, or past pain. The loop is real, and until you break it, it will quietly dictate the limits of your destiny. Knowledge alone has never transformed a life. Information, regardless of its depth or brilliance, is powerless without a corresponding identity to carry it into action. This is the hidden paradox. A person can be fully aware of what to do, why it matters, and how it leads to success, yet still fail to act. The failure does not lie in intellect. It lies in identity. We do not rise to the level of what we know. We fall to the level of who we believe we are. Every decision, every habit, every goal is filtered through the subconscious narrative of self-perception. If that narrative remains unchanged, no amount of external knowledge will generate lasting change. Identity is not merely who you think you are. It is the deeply rooted structure of beliefs, emotional associations, and self-imposed limits that shape your internal reality. If someone believes, even quietly, that they are undisciplined, unworthy, or destined for mediocrity, that belief will override knowledge, motivation, and even opportunity. They may act for a time, but they will eventually self-correct, not toward success, but toward their internal self-image. This is the law of consistency between identity and behavior. The mind seeks congruence, even if it means sabotaging progress, to stay loyal to a limiting self-concept. To become who you must be, knowledge must be internalized into identity. This requires more than thought. It demands repetition, visualization, emotion, and immersion. When new behaviors are not just performed but lived from the place of "this is who I am now," the brain begins to encode a new pattern. Change becomes effortless, not because the task is easy, but because the identity now supports it. The transformation is not from thought to result. It is from identity to embodiment. And until this shift occurs, all change remains fragile, reversible, and temporary. Desire is the spark, but without structure, it becomes smoke, intangible, drifting, and ultimately lost. The world is filled with individuals who burn with ambition, who dream vividly, who speak of visions with intensity, yet who remain stuck in the same cycle year after year. This is not a lack of passion. It is a lack of design. Without a framework, desire becomes an emotional experience rather than a transformational force. It excites, but it does not execute. Success demands more than the want for a better life. It requires the conscious construction of a system that makes that life inevitable through daily alignment. Structure is the container through which energy becomes direction. When desire is paired with a precise daily practice, a methodical environment, and a rhythm of accountability, it ceases to fluctuate with mood or circumstance. It becomes embodied. No great architect begins with only a wish. They begin with a blueprint. The same must apply to the architecture of self. The individual who lives by design does not leave growth to chance. They engineer their mornings, script their rituals, shape their surroundings, and deliberately build habits that support their future identity. Each repeated behavior is not random. It is the laying of internal bricks, the quiet construction of personal infrastructure. Design brings clarity to the chaos. It eliminates the emotional volatility that derails those who rely on willpower alone. It replaces reactive living with intentional movement. The mind, when given a system, begins to automate success. It no longer debates whether or not to act. It simply follows the pattern it has been trained to respect. Over time, the system becomes stronger than the struggle. The person who once depended on fleeting desire is now moved by inner architecture. Through intelligent design, excellence ceases to be a goal and begins to feel like the only natural outcome. Human beings are in a constant state of becoming, whether consciously directed or unconsciously allowed. Every thought, every choice, and every repeated behavior is shaping the next version of the self. There is no neutrality in this process. You are either reinforcing old patterns or creating new ones. You are either authoring your evolution or outsourcing it to external forces, environment, culture, habit, and past experience. The mind is not fixed. It is programmable. The neuroplasticity of the brain proves that identity is not destiny. It is designable, adaptable, and subject to change when approached with intention and clarity. At the core of personal transformation lies the principle of repetition. The subconscious mind, the seat of identity, does not respond to inspiration. It responds to what is repeated with emotion and belief. What you expose yourself to daily becomes embedded in the mental operating system. Words become beliefs, beliefs become behavior, and behavior becomes identity. The individual who understands this begins to treat each habit, each input, each association not as trivial, but as formative. They curate their mental environment with the same precision an artist applies to every stroke of the brush. They do not merely wish to grow, they place that growth on a schedule. Unconscious becoming is the default state of the masses. It is living by reaction rather than intention. It is shaped by media, by old stories, by fears inherited rather than questioned. But conscious becoming is the path of mastery. It begins with self-awareness, is strengthened by clarity of vision, and is reinforced through systems that install the identity of who you are choosing to become. The power lies not in the future, but in the present practice of repetition. You are not waiting for transformation. You are actively participating in it, moment by moment, through the micro decisions that determine your trajectory. Thought, belief, and action form the trinity of personal creation. When these three elements are aligned, the human being becomes a force of precision and inevitability. Thought alone is abstract, powerful, yes, but without form. Belief gives that thought weight and emotional conviction. Action translates both into matter, into movement, into visible transformation. When these three are disconnected, life becomes scattered. The mind may wish for success, but the body does not act. The heart may believe in change, but the thoughts contradict it. This internal disharmony creates friction, self-doubt, and ultimately stagnation. True creation begins when thought, belief, and action move in unison, each reinforcing the next, each driving the system forward. The subconscious mind does not respond to contradiction. It follows the dominant pattern that is presented to it with consistency and emotion. If a person says they are confident, but their thoughts are filled with hesitation, and their actions reflect avoidance, the subconscious will follow the pattern, not the words. It will believe the doubt, not the declaration. But when a single clear message is sent repeatedly through all layers of self, mental, emotional, physical, the mind begins to accept it as truth. This is not illusion or self-deception. It is the biological mechanism of reconditioning. Faith, when fused with action, becomes more than belief. It becomes certainty, and certainty changes behavior at the core level. The individual no longer acts with hope, they act with knowing. They no longer seek results to prove their worth. They express results as a reflection of who they already are. This alignment removes internal resistance. It eliminates the subconscious sabotage that so often pulls people back into old patterns. When every layer of being supports the same intention, change accelerates. Momentum builds, not from external motivation, but from inner congruence. Thank you. If you like this video, please click on like and subscribe our channel for my daily motivations.